Well, hello, and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where it was sometime around this week, in at the very end of the '60s, that the final album by Simon and Garfunkel, the final studio album, 1970 was the year, was released, and it was arguably their best album. It had their biggest hit, the title track, and in terms of vocalists, I prefer Garfunkel. There you go, and he was the lead on that hit single. Now, of all of the descriptions of Simon and Garfunkel that I've heard, the best came from Jimmy Webb. He called it literate music, and he said that they were part of a generation that were not just more politically inclined in terms of what they put down on tape compared to previous generations, but they had a lot of references from literature. You could argue that another interesting New York duo, Steely Dan, more famous for their musical composition than their lyrics, but their lyrics are also very infamous. They sort of took those obscure literary references to a total extreme, making their lyrics inaccessible where to most, where Simon and Garfunkel were still very accessible. And Bridge Over Troubled Water, even though it was done in what some, I hate the term, they call sort of chamber pop, but it was that very elaborate wall of sound style production. But it had some gospel elements. Lots of people actually remade it in that style. Roberta Flack, who sadly we lost this week, did a wonderful version of this song and put it in a totally different light that, frankly, is really, really moving. Of course, the famous duo broke up, and like many famous duos in music, decided to hate each other for a good 30 years on and off since then, but they left an amazing legacy. Every song on the album is great. The Boxer was another huge hit that featured on this album, featuring the wonderful natural echo on the snare drum. They weren't using any effects long before Simmons drums. They apparently put a snare drum in a hallway in sort of a grand lobby of a building full of marble. They put the microphone at a safe distance, and that's how they got that interesting snare sound on the Boxer. But just such great songs on this album. It was a huge seller. It had all of the guys from the Wrecking Crew, including Hal Blaine on it. And it left a legacy of this era that Jimmy Webb, I think, correctly described as literate music. It was, but at the same time, it wasn't so eggheady that it didn't have mass pop appeal. It very much did, and people love it to this day. And it holds up. So, as always, like and subscribe, and we will see you and yours next time. Take care.